Welcome to Mental Health Today. I'm Mike Murray.
I'm Tony Clark.
And today we'll be discussing good and bad medicines. Also, we'll be talking about dopamine in another segment. Of course, we'll have Mike's take and Truth with Tony, and all that is happening right here on Mental Health Today. Welcome, Mental Health Today, and today we are talking about good and bad medicines. There are good medicines, there are bad medicines, and there's an in-between point, I suppose. Is that what you would say?
No, I think this is going to be the most controversial episode we've done since bullying because we don't agree on the subjects we're about to talk about.
Oh, okay.
But it's also one of those things where we can sort of disagree as friends and as colleagues and still be very close friends.
Good, because if we were on social media, we'd be going, "You're an idiot!"
Yeah. But, we definitely have faraway opinions on this.
Mm-hmm.
My opinions are not based on anything that I've read in books. My opinions are based on my experiences in the last 11 months. And not even just the last 11 months, but the last 10 years, 15 years of being on medicine, which I'll get to in Truth with Tony. But one of the issues with medicine for me is when I take it, I become a shell of a human being.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people feel that way.
With depression medicine and medicines that target a lot of mental illnesses, what they do is they take away your feelings.
Mm-hmm.
They take away your emotions. And when you can't feel anything, you would rather just feel the pain.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why so many people stop taking the medicine, because they need that feeling again. They need to feel like they're a human being.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I stopped taking my medicine. And it's been beneficial to me, but I didn't just stop taking my medicine and sit at home and lay in bed.
Mm-hmm.
I stopped taking my medicine. I got in touch with a social worker. Social worker, as I said last week, introduced me to Cornerstone Montgomery,
mm-hmm.
introduced me to NAMI,
mm-hmm.
helped me with my disability, helped me with my Medicare Part B.
Mm-hmm.
So we are definitely both in agreement that we are pro-social workers.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to see anybody at all, I think that's one of the main things to do.
Yeah.
I don't believe in individual therapy because, again, that just requires me to take out my insurance card, pay co-pays, and do all that,
mm-hmm.
and you become part of the money system.
Mm-hmm.
So I've decided to handle my mental illness through free support.
Well, and pharmaceuticals are also part of the money system. I mean, there are some people who, depending on their insurance, are going to have to pay a lot of money for a particular kind of medicines, and if they don't have the money, they can't take the medicine.
Excuse me. My mom, it's not mental medicine, but my mom's on so many different medicines, and her medicine, I think, costs over $300 a month, even with insurance.
Wow. Yeah.
So, that's disturbing to me.
Yeah.
And, but with the mental health medicines, it's funny because my insurance didn't cover one years ago I was on that was Depakote,
mm-hmm.
and it was $232 a month.
Mm. Yeah.
And it was just like, are you kidding me right now? Even the generic was, retardedly expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to do things not only based on my financial situation, but also how you feel inside. Like, you know your own truth.
Mm-hmm.
You know what the medicine does to you. You know what it doesn't do to you. And you have to make a decision. Is it worth it taking this? Is it making me feel better?
Yeah.
My argument on medicine, though, and this I think we're in agreement with. When you take, let's say you go to the doctor and you take one medicine, and I'm fine with that. If that's what you want to do it. Please, don't let me stop you. I'm not going to berate you for it. But let's say you take that one medicine. And for instance, I was on, the first medicine I was ever put on was Klonopin.
Mm-hmm.
And I was 14 at the time. And it did different things to me at 14 than it did at 40.
Mm.
And
That's interesting.
At 14, it was making me impotent. And you're going through puberty and all that stuff, and then you can't get an erection, and it's like you think something's wrong. So you go to the doctor, and he goes, well, I'm going to put you on this medicine to offset that. Well, that medicine gives you a stuffy nose all the time. So now he puts you on a third medicine to offset the stuffy nose. The third medicine gives you a numbing feeling in your leg. So now he's got you on a fifth medicine. The fifth medicine makes your cholesterol go higher. So they put you on a cholesterol medicine, and it's just it's a rolling rock down a hill.
What about the people, the kids who are put on whether it's Adderall or Ritalin, and it's happening at 12 years old maybe, or in your case 14. It's suddenly you're an addict at that age because you really can't get off of the medicine.
Well, and you can't, and this is one of my things about why I don't use the system. When you use the system and you're entered into the system, the mental health system itself, it is almost impossible to get out. You can stop taking your medicine and do all that kind of stuff, but you're still going to be involved in the mental health system. If you have a mental relapse, you end up in the hospital and you have to go through the whole process again. So, and if you apply for programs through the county, instead of going to these free support groups, they've got you by the balls. They've got all your information, and they say, okay, we'll give you these benefits, but you have to do this. You have to go to job training, you have to go do this, you have to go do that, and then it's just all this, and it puts even more pressure on you.
We can go on and on about this topic, and if you'd like to comment on it or you have any questions, just go to mentalhealthtoday04@gmail.com, and we'll get this back up. But mentalhealthtoday04@gmail.com, and just getting back to it, it's such a problem also because part of what we talk about is that the goal is to have good self-esteem and self-confidence. But if you're constantly questioning how you're feeling, you start to look at yourself in a microscope. And then with the medication also, what I've noticed, just to let you know, let the audience know, that I've noticed that when people are changing their medication or they switch up a little bit, it has an effect. And that effect, you start to say, well, is that because of the medication or am I having a problem? Well, usually it's because of the medication. I mean, you have to see what's occurred to change your situation. Is it something in the environment, or is it something in the pharmaceuticals that you're given?
Since going to NAMI, I've become a big proponent of one of their principles, and I never thought about it before I went to NAMI. And it talks about how we understand that mental illnesses can have environmental triggers. And when people hear the word environment, I think they misthink that word because it's about your environment around you. What people do you have around you? What places? What things? If you're for instance, if you're a cocaine addict and you're hanging out with people who are using cocaine, you have very little chance of staying sober. You're going to use cocaine. It's similar to my theory that I invented, that I need to be the weakest link in my chain. If I'm not the weakest link in my chain, I have nowhere to go but down.
You make a good point about that, and that's another point about this. There's so many things about this, but this leads into our next segment. People who are addicts to things like marijuana or cocaine or heroin or alcohol, and they're all drugs, and so are psychotropic medicine. They're drugs too. And people seem to think, but these are good drugs, I used to hear, but they're still drugs, and they still have the same effect, and they have different effects on different people. And some people who are in recovery programs, they are working steps, they're getting the support, and they want to get off the drugs to get a baseline of, okay, so here I am, I've got a dual diagnosis. Where is it that my problems begin and the medicine either helps or doesn't help? And I think that's a good idea for some.
I see so many examples of people who are on so many medicines, and I'm talking like 6 to 9 to 10 different medicines, and they can't even leave the house.
Wow.
They go to the doctor, they get their pills, they go home, they take the pills, and they trap themselves in their house, and they just lay in bed 24 hours.
You know, and another thing I notice sometimes about the psychiatric profession or the psychology profession when we talk about the system is that they don't seem too concerned about you working. And sometimes these medications just don't help you work. You forget things, you might forget things, or you might become lethargic. It might be difficult to stay awake. You know, people have to go out and work. And on the other side, you were talking about the environment, and something that's stressful is going to work and going to the office, and that causes anxiety. So,
well, we're in disagreement on that because, and later in Truth with Tony, I'll delve into it more. Because in Truth with Tony today, I'm going to give you the Tony on medicine and the Tony off medicine, and let you decide which one you want. And when I'm on medicine, I am very successful at working. I held a job for 6 years at Blockbuster. I was at Sunoco for over 10 years.
Oh, I'm not saying you can't. I'm saying it could.
I know, but I'm saying for me, it had the medicine had a positive effect in terms of me being a productive member of society. That's one of the pros that I will talk about in terms of Tony on medicine and Tony off medicine.
Okay, looking forward to that. Now, coming up, did you know that we have actual kind of internal drugs that we can create from within?
Yes, and one of the things I'll be interested in talking to you about there, since you are a member of a 12-step recovery program, is I have a theory on why most people need to replace an addiction with another addiction. And AA and NA people are commonly known to replace drugs and alcohol with this next addiction that I'll be talking about in the next segment. And
we are going to that next segment, but first I'm going to talk about an aspect of medicine, good and bad, and that's coming up here in Mike's Take.
Guilty of communication crimes. Was it just a binge or was I blind?
I'm not sure if you ever saw Fridays. It was a show that was a takeoff of Saturday Night Live, and it was on ABC on Friday nights. And there was a skit there where the pharmacist was this guy who was sweating and totally wigged out, and he always said, "Take a pill." And anything that somebody does, any problem that somebody has, he says, "Take a pill." And it was really funny. Only now, everybody does take a pill for everything. There are pills for erections. There are pills for women to get horny. There are pills for trying to feel up. There are pills for feeling down. There are pills for everything. And to tell you the truth, if I didn't have to take a pill, I wouldn't take a pill. In fact, if I was on I had a high cholesterol, which I do. I have a high cholesterol level, so I take Lipitor to lower the cholesterol. But I'm going to find out that if exercise and good exercise and keep myself fit and trim means that my cholesterol will go down without taking a pill, I'm not going to take a pill. Why should I? Same thing with mental illness. If we're recovering from mental illness, if we're beginning to understand how our mind works and understand what things cause anxiety and what are stress triggers and how to cope with them, then why do we need medication if it's not necessary? Now, I'm going to be working, and as I have been, to get myself off of all medication, so I have a baseline. And from that baseline say, okay, am I anxious today? Do I need an anti-anxiety pill? And what dosage do I need? Because I want the lowest one possible. By the way, when I say I'm on medication, I don't really feel a stigma by that, because I know that everybody is on medication. I know. There's a lot of people out there that are on anti-anxiety medication, and they won't admit it. And why not? They're stressed out. They're stressed out at work. They're stressed out at home. And what do? They go to their doctor, their physician, and they ask for an anti-anxiety medication, and they're prescribed one by their doctor. They won't necessarily get into the mental health system or see a psychiatrist. they'll just get an anti-anxiety medication. So how many people are on anti-anxiety medications, and who has the right to judge people with mental illness who are on medication, or for that matter, who are off medication? There are a lot of people who are taking pills for a number of reasons, and who gets wealthy? The pharmaceutical industry. That's right, it's all about money. So, the next time that you're feeling stressed out, or you have issues, or you're feeling down, or you don't understand what's wrong with you, you might want to think it might be that medication that you have in your body that might be affecting you rather than your environment. And that's my take. Okay, so we're going to talk now about the dopamine effect. And dopamine is something, it's a chemical in our brain. There are a lot of chemicals that we have. Endorphins that are released when running, so people get that runner's high, and oxytocin, which is a chemical effect when you first meet somebody and have that infatuation and that love feeling. That's a chemical. So, dopamine. That's another chemical.
With AA and NA people, this is most prevalent to you people. I've spent years in those 12-step recovery programs, and I will tell you that your addiction now is the gym. And I'll tell you why it's the gym. I found, first of all, if it wasn't for AA and NA, gyms would be totally out of business. It was a fad years ago in the 90s, and I figured it would go away. You know, the Ballet's Total Fitnesses are opening up with these big gymnasiums and stuff like that. My sister taught aerobics at one of the places, and I really felt that that was just a fad and it was going to go away. Well, all these AA and NA people got hooked on working out, and I'll tell you why. When you're using drugs, the dopamine that's released in you, you're addicted to the dopamine. You're not addicted to the drug. You're addicted to the feeling, okay? And the same high you get from smoking weed, snorting coke, drinking alcohol, whatever, the same high, gambling, sex, you know, the same high you get from that, you get from working out. And people realize that. So they go lift weights, and they start working out, and they come in, and they're all like, you know, and they're all like ripped out.
We're going to pump you up.
And it's the most annoying thing on the planet to me, because you're just replacing another addiction with an even worse addiction. Because you keep pushing yourself, and then you're lifting weights, or you're running a mile, and then once you run the mile 25 times, you're no longer feeling that dopamine anymore. So you got to push yourself to do more. And that's why I hate these videos on YouTube and on Facebook that I see of these guys that are like, you know, me benching 380, you know, or, you know, some stupid thing like that where they just lift it up and then drop it.
But like I mentioned before, that's endorphins that are released, but that affects dopamine?
Yeah. Because what happens is the chemicals in the brain, you know, yeah, you get the adrenaline in your chest, but there's chemicals in your brain that are automatically released when you're doing something that's exciting you, you know, and that's pushing you. I even get dopamine released in my head from doing this show.
Okay,
You know, because I get excited. I don't get nervous. I get excited to film it because I have a view I want to present. And if you like it, fine. If you don't like it, I could care less, because it's doing what I need to make me feel better.
Wow, you make me think about a few things. One is like the drum circle I've been at. And these drum circles are very spiritual, and they make people feel good. And there are the support groups that we go to. They tend to make you feel good when you get out of them. They give you a different feeling than when you came in. So how do you explain that? Is that just the communal thing that creates?
It's everybody. And I really do believe it's everybody. But the thing is that everybody has different things that excite them. For me, one of the things also, I love doing karaoke because I used to be in a band, and since I can't be in a band anymore, I like to go to karaoke because the feeling that I get when I'm on stage in my brain, it starts in my brain, and then it goes through the rest of my body, and I feel like a completely different person.
Mm-hmm.
I feel positive. I feel like I could destroy the world. I feel like I have total control over my life when I'm on stage.
Well, yeah, I know what you mean. I
think it would be the same thing running.
Running, and also I'm a writer, so I write. I've written plays and I write screenplays, and when I've done that, I could spend like a whole day inside my head writing the play and putting it in, and I'm just like, it's an escape. And when I'm done, or I'm done with a project, it's like this really good feeling.
Yeah.
And you know, the thing about some medications that we discussed earlier is that some of these medications are like, let's slow down your brain. Let's not let it. Let's not let your imagination run away. Or,
It stifles. It stifles the
It
creativity.
can stifle creativity. And some people are actually have written some great things while depressed. I'm not saying depression is a good thing, but a lot of creative people have written some really good things when depressed.
Well, it's like I told you when I've been working on stuff that we're working on for projects. I tell you, man, I'm really good at writing drama. That's why I was like, I can't wait until we do the lighter stories that I've come up with, because that's 3 books where I'm going to be able to make it the most dramatic thing on the planet, and overly dramatic.
Yeah.
People respond to drama. So, and I can do that. I can't write comedy, but I can be funny to your face.
Mm-hmm.
I can't write comedy. I can't write horror or, you know, scary stuff like that. But for some reason, I found my niche. My niche was drama.
Mm-hmm.
And I got the feeling, like when I came up with the lighter story and I called you and I said, this is what I want to do, and let's make him a serial killer, and then we started talking about everything, I was like, man, everything got going in me.
Mm-hmm.
And I had the basis of the book, the first book, done very quickly after we talked.
Mm-hmm.
And then you came to me and was like, actually, that could be a second book. And then I said, well, wait, why don't we do this in the second book and make this the third book?
Right.
So those things, they motivate you.
Yes.
When you get that release of dopamine, you get motivated to do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And that is my biggest problem when I'm not on medicine, and I'll talk about that too. But my biggest problem when I'm not on medicine is motivation.
Yeah, and you know, down the road, I want to actually have an episode about work and mental illness and certain things like that. But getting back to this point is that there are some people who, comedians especially, who they just, some of them are just wacky. I think of Sarah Silverman and Roseanne, and Robin Williams was totally out there, but hilarious. And all of them had, they didn't like taking medication, although Robin Williams was an alcoholic, but they didn't really, but I know Roseanne, she went through the experience, didn't like Sarah Silverman. I mean, you know, it's kind of, if you don't make money, if you're the starving artist, something's wrong. But a lot of starving artists, you know, could have mental illness, but a lot of the artists who succeed and make the money and become famous, they still have that mental illness.
You're going too deep there.
No?
You're going way too deep.
Oh.
Just because I'm not concerned with the, you know, successful artist. But the successful artist has a group around them.
Yeah.
Yeah, a bigger group around them.
An entourage.
An entourage, yeah, exactly. Whereas a small artist, you know, like us,
Yeah.
we don't really have anything.
Yeah.
You know, we don't have anybody to protect us.
Right.
From whatever's coming down the road.
Well, if they have a bunch of yes men, but we are getting too deep. But my point is that a lot of creative people have mental illness.
My point with the
sometimes the medication can have an impact on
my point with the creativity. Okay, here's the thing. I've met a lot of people in a lot of support groups, and they find out either they think they're creative or they're told they're creative. But then you have the group of people that says, man, this kid's really doing something. Like, they'll look at me and so that he's really doing something, being proactive about his illness.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to write something.
Yeah.
So they try to write something and then they give it to me to read.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it becomes a point where now I have to become the person who has to politely say whether it's good or bad. And I'm not good at that. I'm not good at, you know, I'm more of the person going, man, you really need to do something with this because, you know, it's junk. But with I wouldn't have known I was creative had someone, not you, had not pointed out to me that my lies could be turned into stories.
Right.
And in my head, and I could reframe them to do something.
Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about. I mean, people who are funny, a sense of humor is actually when you think of something that's wrong, but it's funny. So everybody wants to be so right, and then they look in their head and they're saying, "Oh, is that right? Is that not?" But a sense of humor, being funny, is sometimes about being wrong.
That's one of the things I want to point out to you. It just popped back in my head. The number one profession that's most susceptible to suicide is being a dentist. Dentists have a higher rate of suicide than any other profession. The second highest suicide rate is stand-up comedians.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah. One of my favorite stand-up comedians was Mitch Hedberg. And he's totally a stoner. He had long hair. He wore these blue shaded glasses. Mm-hmm. And he would come out and he was king of the one-liners. Mm-hmm. And he would just say one line. It'd be funny as shit. People would laugh. And then the next line had nothing to do with the other line. Mm-hmm. And one of my favorite ones was he was like, the other day, a box of, I had ordered, he said something about, he goes, I wonder if Pringle's initial intention was to make tennis balls. because
right, because it's in the can.
So he goes, but on the day they were ready to produce everything, a big truck pulled up with a bunch of potatoes, and they said, "Fuck it, let's just go with it." He blew his brains out.
Oh, dude.
And he was only like 23, 24 years old. And you could tell he was depressed because, man, he you know, I'm an excellent reader of people, and he would literally stand on stage, hold his microphone like this, and just wave his long hair behind him, and he was just like one of the saddest people to watch. But his one-liners were pretty funny.
And Freddie Prinze, do you remember?
Yeah,
okay, from Chico and the Man, he killed himself too. But you make a good point, and that is that, look, sometimes medication can hinder you, but if it's a situation like Freddie Prinze or the comedian you're talking about, Mitch Hedberg, or like Robin Williams, even though they say now it's not a suicide, I'm not so sure about that. Then you need to start thinking about medication. So it's kind of like, one other thing I'm going to say is that people who have cholesterol, they all, to improve it, take Lipitor. But if they're able to exercise and bring down their cholesterol, and then they don't need medication anymore, if it were me, as I said, I'd be off of Lipitor. I don't want to take medication.
Well, there are ways. There are diets to benefit the mentally ill. When they were putting me on lithium, I was like, well, why can't I just increase my salt intake? You know, that's another option. There are other things that you can do besides taking a pill, and I can't stress it enough. I'm a happier person off medicine because I feel what I feel.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not an empty shell of a human being.
Yeah.
And you're not going to convince me to do otherwise. And like I said, in Truth with Tony, I will prove my point. And you can make the decision as to whether you want Tony on meds or Tony off meds.
Yeah.
Most people that I know, I'm willing to bet, will take Tony off medicine because my family's always looked at short-term Tony. And that's the problem. Mm-hmm. They need to look at long-term Tony. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to dip my foot in the water, you know, I'm trying to jump in.
Right.
And I can't jump in if I'm on medicine.
Yeah.
I can't.
Right. There's something to be said about you know, producing emotions, anxiety, for example, knowing, okay, I'm anxious. Well, I don't like the situation. I'm laughing, I'm happy, I'm fun, you know, I'm sad. I mean, you know, sadness is part of its emotions. It's something if nobody's happy. But to prevent you from being sad, you know, there is, in ordinary people, I don't mean to, and I know this is segment's going long, but in ordinary people, one of the things that Timothy Hutton says to Judd Hirsch when he comes in is, can't you just give me a pill or something like that? And Judd Hirsch says, hey, you look like something out of a zombie movie or something when you walked in. I think a pill is the last thing you need. That's what they said in 1980. But once medicine started coming around and you got Prozac and all of these good drugs started coming in, and now I'm not knocking it. We have great drugs. Only now everybody seems to want that pill rather than...
Here's the problem with what we're talking about in a nutshell. You take medicine, okay? The medicine is there to make money, all right? It's not there to help you. It's there to make money. If it was there to help you, the doctor would put you on it until you pass your episode and then wean you off of it.
Mm-hmm.
But with psychiatric drugs, they just keep you on it for a long period of time. I was on an antipsychotic years ago called clozapine.
Mm-hmm.
I blew up to 285 pounds. I ate everything in sight.
Yeah.
I had no erection for like 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a lot of other side effects, drooling and shit like that I just didn't like. But I was
Right.
in an institution, so I didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
Okay. Now that I'm out, I have a choice, and I am not going to become a victim of the man after all the years that I have spent being a lab rat.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go to a doctor and the doctor's going to say, here's this medicine, and here's this medicine, and we'll see you next month.
Right.
I take it for a month and I go back, I don't like the way these are making me feel. All right, we're going to take you off this and put you on this, this, and this.
Yeah.
I'm tired of being a lab rat, number one. Number two, that doctor has no interest in getting you off medicine. The doctor wants you on the medicine, and he's going to keep you on the medicine. Too many people rely on medicine, and I have my theory, and I'm sorry if you don't like it. The reason mentally ill people are on medicine, and this is the problem, you can't deal with reality. Anytime reality hits, you run to the doctor for a pill. That's the case with every mentally ill person that I have come in contact with. That does not believe in what I believe in.
Yeah. How about the people who have an injury and they run for a painkiller when they don't need a painkiller after a while?
Exactly. And then they start thinking in their head, they're like, okay, well, I can get, all I have to do, I went to the doctor before about this thing with my knee, and, I like the way that painkiller made me feel, so I'm just going to go back to the doctor and tell him my knee hurts. And then you get into the abusing. And the becoming chemically dependent on these things. I can't sit by and watch that, because when you're doing that, you're just destroying yourself.
Yeah.
And you're stifling your creativity.
Right.
And you can't move forward.
Yep.
But with this, I feel great. I do believe that we are in agreement with your personal situation, that you're lowering your medicines in the intent and hope that you will be able to get off of them,
Right.
and do more of what I'm doing.
Yeah, I want to get that baseline, and then it's like, okay, I'm feeling like a lot of anxiety, and it's not helping me be productive. How much do I need? What's the least amount that I need? That's the way I'm thinking of it. In your case, another thing is that being fat, drooling, and impotent is not going to help your self-esteem.
No, it's not. It's not going to help your confidence and self-esteem at all. And again, like I said, I'll get into the differences, and I think people are going to be shocked at the self-examination that I can do. And that's another thing. Being off medicine, I'm able to examine myself honestly. And say, these are the pros to me being on medicine, these are the pros to me being off medicine. And then I have to make that decision. I don't care what you think. I don't care what my mom thinks or my siblings think or even my wife. I care about what I think. What is it doing to me? Because I'm the one living inside my own skin, not you. So that's why I don't berate people who are on a lot of medicines. If they feel they need it to deal, that's fine. But it's just my personal opinion that when you become dependent on these medicines, you've stopped living.
Right.
You can't do things to help yourself and to benefit yourself.
Yeah.
And you take the medicines and you just lay there.
Yeah.
And, that's why I've preached action from the beginning. But with the dopamine, there are so many healthier ways to get that dopamine released in your system.
Yeah.
If it is working out, even though I can't stand it, if it is working out, if it's writing, if it's even watching a movie that you like,
Right.
That you enjoy.
Right.
I listen to a ton of music, and it's because of the dopamine that's released in my head.
Right.
And it makes me feel good. I stopped listening to the depressing ass music in the last 11 months, and I'm listening to more of the music with the positive messages. And
we discuss also a lot is if you're not happy with your psychiatrist, if you feel like you're on too much medicine, it's not to say get off of it, but go to a new psychiatrist, get a second opinion. Say, I don't want to be on this much medication, and see what they say, because maybe you are. So
And stop at that second opinion, because too many people end up going doctor shopping until they get an answer that they like.
that may be too true too, right?
So that's why I wanted to throw that out there.
Everybody gets a second opinion when they see a doctor for anything.
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna come back now with Truth with Tony coming up, and we'll find out his pros and cons, and of course his truth coming up.
Hail to the truth inside, hiding from you. Can't let it fail to deliver us away. I'm dying, I'm lying, I'm telling the truth.
Well, since this is Truth with Tony, let's talk about me. My favorite topic. Let's talk about Tony on medicine. Tony on medicine has over 2,000 days in a psychiatric facility over his lifetime on medication. On medication, I am successful with work. I held 2 jobs for very lengthy periods of time while on medicine. While on medicine, I have very few friends. I have 1,000 acquaintances, but maybe 1 friend. Also on medicine, I tend to be more critical and more judgmental of myself, which causes a lot of issues anxiety-wise. On medicine, I can be a person who talks to you about one topic for hours. Whereas off medicine, I will talk to you about 30 different topics in 20 minutes. Off medicine, I have had 1 hospitalization. That right there is a big key for me. 1 hospitalization off medicine, to which they put me on medicine. So, but one of the key things for me becomes that when I'm on medicine, I feel like a shell of a human being. I don't feel like I have emotions. I don't feel like I have feelings. And it's just really uncomfortable. Off medicine, I can feel everything. Good, bad, ugly. On medicine, when crisis hits my life, I either run to the hospital or I run to the airport and take a plane to a different state. On medicine, I can lose tons of money gambling. Off medicine, I don't feel like gambling so much. So each one has positives and negatives. Off medicine, I'm a little harder to deal with. But I like that because it tells me immediately who's going to stick by me, who's going to be there for me. Off medicine, I have 15 friends now in my support system. Friends. So that's up from being on medicine with friends. However, the acquaintances went down. When I'm on medicine, I have 1,000 acquaintances. When I'm off medicine, I have very few acquaintances. I have told people several times, if you're still in my life at the 6-month mark, you're probably with me for life. I lose people constantly. I lost someone this week that I've only known for a month because they didn't like my views or opinions. And I don't care. I don't want them in my life. I really don't. Because by not being on medicine, I can find out quicker whether somebody is into me or not. Also, being off medicine, I'm a hell of a lot more creative. On medicine, I'm more motivated. Off medicine, it's a little harder to get me to keep doing things without reward. Off medicine, I cannot hold a job. On medicine, as I said, I had 2 very successful work attempts. On medicine, I don't feel as intelligent. I can't hold a discussion with friends where I'm supposed to share my views and it takes me too long and they're already on to the next subject. Off medicine, it's a lot easier for me. Off medicine, I can hold conversations, even though they'll be, like I said, 20 conversations in 30 minutes. Most people actually enjoy that because the people that I run into lately, they don't want to talk about one topic. They want to talk about 100 topics. So I kind of feed into that and I help them. So you see, each one has a good side and a bad side. And after looking at everything, it's my personal opinion, I am easier to deal with now off medicine. Now last year, it wasn't the case. And there's a key to this. I have confidence and self-esteem now. I didn't have confidence and self-esteem. So a lot of the behaviors a year ago that I was doing were because I didn't have confidence and self-esteem. Now that I have confidence and self-esteem, I'm a completely different person. To me, that is the key to what changed me. And as we've talked about in past episodes, there is no pill that's going to cure confidence and self-esteem. That is something that you can get from within you and from the people in your support group. And I'm not going to apologize to people for having this view, because this view now has worked for me for 11 months. And I feel like such a better person, and I feel like a human being finally. And to me, that's the key, because you have to live inside your own skin. So you know what's right for you and you know what's wrong for you. And for me, medicine is not the answer. And I can't live going and sitting there and popping pills and going to the doctor and having to be a lab rat, and then them saying, well, you had a seizure, so let's take you here and do this to you, but we still can't tell you why you had the seizure. And we still can't tell you why this medicine isn't working. All the doctor is to me is guest work in a white coat. And that prevents me from going to the doctor and doing things. I can't do it. Once you've been to the doctor so many times, you don't want to deal with any of that. You just push it aside. I recently was told that I'm an extremist, and I see it now, because I'm either this way or I'm either this way. And it's up to you to decide which Tony you would want to live with. But it doesn't matter to me, because I've already made my decision. So the people who don't agree with me, I don't lose sleep when they leave. And so that's my truth. What's yours?
Interesting take. I got a few questions for you.
Okay.
One, you mentioned first of all that you are an extremist, and that for you it's one way or the other. Would you ever think about say I'm feeling anxious, or some a little flexibility to say I could use something?
No, I'll take something as a PRN. Meaning
PRN?
as needed.
Oh, okay.
It means as needed. You're not taking it every day.
Yeah.
I will take something as a PRN.
Okay.
Like Klonopin or something like that for my anxiety.
Okay.
But I don't want to be on something every day. I want to be on something that allows me to deal with the situation at that moment at the time.
Okay.
For instance, if I had Klonopin the other day, I would have taken one and it would have gotten me through.
Because you're
the
going through a
situation.
stressful situation.
Right, but that's the key. Now, you hearing that segment, I'm asking you, not as a business colleague or as a board member of NAMI, but as a friend, which Tony would you rather deal with?
Well, I've had no problem dealing with you, not on medicine. I've just had no problem with it. When I talk to you, I don't have any problems talking with you. You are creative. The ideas that we exchange are all good, and generally we agree on a lot of things. But that is a good question. For some people, they're going to look at this and say, well, on medicine he's able to work, and off medicine he's not.
Right.
What does that say about Tony?
But that's also why I talked about being comfortable inside my own skin.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather be comfortable inside my own skin than feel like a shell and just feel like I'm on automatic pilot, and get up and go to work and come home and have that same routine.
Okay.
Which routine is good, but with that, the problem is, again, when I take medicine, I don't feel alive.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that, because, when you work, even though you're able to function, I mean, part of taking medicine and part of trying to stay lose your anxiety and so forth is about work. It's about going to work. It's about being able to function and work. But at the same time, it does create not a high, but a sense of, like you said, you'll fly off and go to Vegas without thinking about consequences and so forth, because you're comfortable enough to do it.
Well, that's on medicine.
Right.
On medicine, but that's not the thing. I'm not comfortable enough to do it. On medicine, when I do stuff like that and fly out to Vegas or fly to Michigan, wherever I'm going, it's to run away from my problems.
Right,
and that's on medicine.
Right.
But
I'm saying that it allows you to do it, to take the action. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but
In
it's
other
not
words,
a healthy thing to do.
It's not a healthy thing to do.
That's my point.
But that's my point
Whereas
too.
when I'm off medicine, I can sit through a situation.
Yeah, that's my point too. I mean, if somebody's at work and they're not anxious about something, that could affect their judgment, and they might do something that, because they're not anxious about it, so they don't feel there's anything wrong with it, only others can perceive that there is something wrong.
Too many people react in the moment. All you have to do is look at the election, look at the aftermath of the election, but you can also look at things with mentally ill people. Too many people react within the moment. I did it with you last night. And it's like, I need to get past that point, but a pill's not going to do that for me, because I don't believe in it. I want to utilize my support system and call them up and saying, I'm going through a crisis right now, and I need your help to just talk to me, and we can even talk about sports. I don't care, anything to get my mind off of it, but I can still feel my feelings.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, because we were just talking about earlier about like a drum circle or some sort of a group support system where it makes you literally feel differently or literally feel better. I'm sure some people who are in therapy, they come out of their therapist's office and they just feel better because they had somebody they could talk to and somebody they can vent with. The only problem is that you're paying a lot of money for that sometimes.
And that's what I refuse to do. It's not just that I don't have the money, because if I get wealthy from the book, or if I get wealthy from any of my future projects, I still won't go to the doctor. It's a lifestyle that I have chosen to live, to prove to myself not only that I can do it, but also give people other options. There's plenty of people out there that are sitting at home, they take their medicine and they don't feel human.
Right.
But they keep their mouth shut and they go about their business because they're too afraid to open their mouth. And I'm saying,
they might be too worried about if they get off the medicine. Like, is something bad going to happen?
And that's
besides withdrawal.
You can't let fear do that.
Right.
And you have to know your own truth. You have to know what you feel inside, and you have to go to your doctor and you say, look, I am over medicated. Can we start eliminating a few medicines to see if I can find some kind of comfort zone to where I start feeling human again?
Yeah.
And then after a while, you get down. I was on 6 medicines at the time and went down to 2, and now I'm on none. And I love it so much better. I can't tell you enough. And I weighed the pros and the cons, and I made my own decision. I didn't go to my family. I didn't go to my friends. I made my own decision, and I said, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm willing to accept the consequences. If it puts me in the hospital, it proves the medical field is right. If it doesn't put me in the hospital, then I have just given people a new way to deal with things.
And and again, it's like any other drug. Some people, it's like if somebody is on alcohol or other drugs, it affects people differently. Some people can handle it. Some people cannot. There are psychotropic drugs that cause people to be manic. There are some psychotropic drugs that don't.
Before we close, though, I want to ask you a question. And what do you think about the fact, on medicine, I've had over 2,000 days in a psychiatric facility over my lifetime. Off medicine, I've had 13 days. It was one hospital stay.
I'd say you saved the medical insurance companies some money.
That is a humorous aspect to it. But,
It's true.
But for real, though, that to me, that's the most telling thing, because on medicine, it seemed like that was the only option, was to go to the hospital and get more medicine.
I see. I see what you're saying.
That's why I said it was over 2,000 days of not dealing with reality and not handling life on life's terms. and yet off medicine, I handle life on life's terms, and I had one hospitalization that lasted 13 days, which resulted in me being put back on medicine. And that's when I said no.
Handling life on life's terms. Where have I heard that somewhere before, right?
Exactly.
Okay, well, hope you've enjoyed this week's episode of Mental Health Today on pharmaceuticals, good and bad drugs, good and bad medicines, and also our segment on dopamine. Now, next week, we are going to discuss tools for a mental episode. That's what we're going to discuss next week. Tools for a mental episode. And until then, for Tony Clark, I'm Mike Murray. Have a good week.
uncertainty.